have to trust that the keys which are used are on behalf of them. If they use their own encryption keys, they have, let's say, the last layer. If I remove the key, it's my key, no one else knows it, no one else then can access my data anymore.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of our podcast, Unlocking SAP BTP. Today in our episode 125, Managing and Customer-Owned Encryptions with a new key management service. And today I have Sascha Vierlinger, Product Manager for Key Management Service with me. So hi and welcome to our podcast. So before we start, maybe you just introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. Happy to be here today. Yeah, as you already said, name Sascha Vierlinger. I'm correctly from the product management of the SAP Key Management solutions. Quite a while already at SAP. I think I joined 2017, if I'm not wrong. Was doing consulting before, mostly architectural things in the logistics area. Was also doing that for the COE here at SAP, and already 2 years ago, I had the chance to do a fellowship at the BTP security area. Yeah, and that's where I'm stranded since then.
Yeah, thanks for introducing yourself. So today we're going to talk about the new key management service and in general a bit of the topic of encryptions. But let us start some steps back. So when thinking about encryption in cloud landscapes, why and where are they used?
Yeah, encryption is a, let's say, more important topic since we had all these cloud topics coming up. It's not a few years, it's quite a while ago already, since SAP also decided to go with cloud first. But yeah, as we have data no more on our own hardware and mostly coming up with all the hyperscaler topics, so solutions, applications, data is stored and an external data centers managed by someone else. So the topic of who owns the data and who has access to the data is more important. So also then the topic with encryption is coming into play. So how can I secure my data? Of course, by encrypting the data so that no one else, as of myself, can read it at the end. And that's also something, of course, which is on default on all our SAP products. So SAP products always use customer-specific encryption keys, which means then for each of the customers, if we set up a system, solution, whatever, each persistent service or data service creates an own key for the customer and secures it. And that's, at least the basic idea.
Yeah, you outlined it right, that in the past, of course, in the on-premise fashioned IT landscapes, the customer needed to manage encryption, set it up accordingly and all that kind of stuff. Today, with the world of SAP Cloud Solutions also existing in the IT landscapes, SAP normally manages the encryption keys. How does that work and what does it mean for the customers in detail?
And for the customer, it means that, of course, if they have no, let's say, access to the hardware level or the OS level of a solution anymore, that they have to be sure, they have to trust the ones who manage the systems for them. And they have very typical requirements. So, for example, first one is, for example, the compliance topic. So I have to make sure that only, especially if I'm, for example, in a regulated industry or in a security industry, or I have also data or sensitive data, that I have to be compliant to the requirements. That could be customer-owned requirements, but of course also legal ones, which I have to make sure that the data are stored compliant. And another topic, of course, is if I have any security issues, if I have data or solutions running on my own data center, to speak now very easy pictures, let's say, if I have any issue with the system, I could go to the server at the end and pull out the power plug and the system would be offline. In a cloud world, that's not the case anymore. I cannot just pull somewhere a plug. I cannot cut off the network cable or whatever in a very high emergency situation. So that's also one of the requirements customers have. In any cases, they want to make sure that the system and the data is secured and that they can shut down it at any point in time they want to. So that are let's say, one of the most important topics what we get from our customers.
Okay, and you already got in that direction a bit, but why then the customers want to manage their encryption keys themselves instead of just having it up and running as a managed offering?
If you want to, when you manage it yourself, of course, you have the ability also to use your own key, which means it's again the topic of trust. If you have customer-specific encryption keys, customers have to trust that the keys which are used are on behalf of them. If they use their own encryption keys, they have, let's say, the last layer. If I remove the key, it's my key. No one else knows it. No one else then can access my data anymore. Comes especially into place, for example, if I want to, for example, retreat from a country. So I have a system running up in a country which I want to retreat from very quickly. I had these topics in the past years for some regions on the earth that companies retreated from countries quickly, so they also had to shut down the system. So if I have a system running, for example, on cloud solutions on these countries, I want to make sure that no one else gets the data anymore, which is stored there. So that's also a big topic.
Okay, so so in general, today we're going to talk about the key management service and how this all fits together. So maybe we get into this. So what is the key management service doing then?
So key management service, in fact, has a few basic topics which are covered. So the first one, of course, I want to create, I want to store and protect my cryptographic key. So that's let's say the baseline. How is this done? Of course, each KMS normally has a known key store, which is at the end also hardware secured, which means that's a specific type of hardware where I can store cryptographic keys in, so which are not accessible from outside, to keep it very high level. And with these keys, I want to define who can access these keys or who has the control of the keys. And of course, about the key usage. So where is it used? Is it used for single solutions, platforms, whatever, just generic saying. I want to manage the lifecycle. So maybe I do not want to use one key forever, but the key has only, a life cycle of 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And after this life cycle, I want to rotate it. And what does it mean then from a lifecycle perspective? I want to enable the key. I want to disable the key. And at the very far end, I want maybe delete the key. But what does key deletion means? Of course, if I delete a key and data is still, for example, or I still encrypted with this key, means that also that I delete this data, in fact. Of course, it's maybe physically there, but it's cryptographic shredded, as I would say. And the other topic is, of course, which I want to use my KMS for, is that I have it for audit reasons, so that everything gets logged, that everyone can be secured, that the compliance is met. So the audit topic is also a big part of it.
Okay, so you mentioned the key rotation and that you might want to make this. So why, and is it recommended also to use key rotation?
That depends on the customer needs, to be honest. So from a technical perspective, you do not need it. So for example, if you do not use a KMS and you have just a default encryption of your database, for example, it's a default key. But of course, there are compliance requirements normally, which forces then customers to say, okay, my keys have a lifetime, and after this specific lifetime, they should have been changed. But that depends very far on customer needs and also on the specific industries. If you're, for example, looking at defense, health industry, or also from security sensitive, like governmental data. So from, for example, data of all of us, there are more strict requirements compared to, let's say, I have a small company building machines. For them, maybe it's not so important that they have short key lifetimes. But as I said, it depends on the customer, on the industries, and based on the needs, you can set it up.
Yeah, it's nice that you at least have the opportunity to do that. And of course, when I'm thinking about the keys, let's get into the details. So if a customer says, okay, I don't want to use the SAP default managed key, whatever, for whatever reason. So how do the customer can bring their own key into the process or into the encryption?
So there are different ways to start. So first of all, of course, you need an KMS product of SAP to start with. So that's also one of the topics we're talking here today. But in more general, of course, there are two parts involved. The first one, I need the KMS with a key store, and on the key store, it depends on what you want to do. We come to that in a second. Okay, and on the other side, of course, you have to tell your solution that now I want to bring in my own key. So depending on which solution you have, could be, I don't know, if you're talking in the SAP environment, could be our BTP platform. So if I have services running on the BTP platform, or maybe also my own application running on the BTP platform, I have to tell this application now, please use my own customer keys, not a default key. So that's the one side. And on course of the other side of the KMS side, I have to bring a key in. So first one, I can create it in the solution, which means it's created inside the KMS, inside the, let's say, default key store, which a KMS normally comes with. So we call it the SAP-managed key scenario. This key store is normal, is in the SAP case always FIPS compliant. So that FIPS is a standard of key stores, how secure they are. And then we also have other options. Let's say if I as a customer would say, okay, I do not want to have everything on the SAP side, so also not the key creation. I can also say, okay, I want to bring my own key, or the third option we have is also that say hold your own key.
Okay, so and what is the difference between bring your own key and hold your own key?
So if I talk about bring your own key, as the word already says, bring. So I bring my own key into the SAP KMS, which means I can upload the key. And after the upload, the key also gets stored on the SAP side. And then from a further behavior, it's like the SAP-managed variant. So everything stays on the SAP side. SAP Cloud Solutions are connected to the KMS, and then I have my keys on the key store. If we're looking on hold your own key means that the key is never imported inside my SAP KMS, which means the keys always stays outside of the SAP world. So it stays on the customer side. Customer can use its own key store, stores the key there. This key store is normally connected then to the KMS. So in case we need a key for any encryption, decryption topics, we would request this operation from the customer key store and then get the result back. So that it's, let's say, the most secure way from a customer perspective to handle it, but also it comes with the most responsibility because all the keys are on the customer side. If they break their key store for what reason ever, I don't know, falls out of the server rack, funny topics, don't know, then, of course, he has to make sure that he has a backup of the key because it's not on the SAP side. That's the difference compared to the bring your own key. In bring your own key, I would have a backup also on my side because I initially uploaded it and I have it on the SAP side.
Okay, so it's more a thing of where is the key located, stored, and where's the lifecycle management happening? Is it imported to the SAP KMS and then from there, point in time, managed in the software of SAP, or is it outside in the customer-owned or managed solution?
Correct. It's location and responsibility. Let's say that's the two topics which are the difference.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so let's refresh our minds a bit, get a bit away from the topics itself, get a bit into a personal discussion. And as we're recording quite in the morning, I'm interested what you had for breakfast.
Just a coffee.
Just a coffee?
No food for today. So no, I had to start early. I took my daughter to the kindergarten and I just had a quick coffee before we left the house.
Okay, but if you would make breakfast, maybe on the weekend, what would be your favorite breakfast then?
My favorite breakfast, if I'm at the weekend, would be, I like to have a croissant in the morning. So a croissant with a coffee, maybe with some chocolate cream on top. That would be a good breakfast for the weekend, and maybe some scrambled eggs. That would be the breakfast of my choice if I would.
Very nice.
Decide it.
Very classical, but very nice as well. Okay, and what about your free time activities? So what is your most favorite activity, like walking in the forest, biking, hiking, whatever.
Yeah, let's say, so what I try to do is that I take 1 or 2 times a week my bicycle. So I have a gravel bike and drive around the forest and, let's say, try to do some sports. Since I have, also, let's say, since you have kids, the focus a little bit changed. So normally I was like to do some computer gaming in the past, but let's say with kids that becomes difficult. So if you find, let's say, 2 evenings in a month, you can enjoy it. It's already high, but of course, still I enjoy it if I have some time to play some games. Yeah. But on the other hand side, you have so much activities together with your family now, which comes up, which is also, of course, a nice time.
I hope you always stay on the tracks for the gravel bikes, yeah?
Let's say normally, mostly, if Komoot is not telling me something wrong and I have to take a shortcut, should work.
Yeah, okay. And then last but not least, what is your, what kind of music you like most, or what brings you down when you, I don't know, upset for whatever reason?
Oh, that's a good question. So music is always a difficult topic. So I'm not the music expert to say, and let's say my the taste of my music changes quite often. But currently, I really like to hear Electric Callboy, to be honest.
Oh, okay. I know them. I have been on a concert some years back. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I came to it. I saw there was on their tour manager has a video blog on YouTube. So that's how I came to them. That's already a few years ago. And yeah, then I decided that I saw, okay, that's quite a nice music. And then I stayed there for now.
Yeah, very nice. So these guys are kind of funny for having some kind of party music and metal music in one. So I like them as well. But yeah, let's come back to topics then. So we don't want to bore them with our private discussions here. So with the new key management service, what is SAP offering in general? So we already heard, okay, if you want to manage the keys, you can have different options like bring your own key, hold your own key, and so on and so forth. But maybe again, what is the offering all about? What kind of capabilities do we have in there?
Yeah, sure. So what is the idea? The idea is to have to centrally manage customer keys for all SAP cloud solutions, or let's say at least the major SAP cloud solutions. So this, let's say we call it a central KMS approach. Not that every application has to deal with it, how to fulfill the requirements of our customers, but having a central solution for that. Then on the one hand side, we have the topic with what we already had from the requirements in the, let's say, questions at the beginning. So for example, to lock my system or prevent access to my data. We call it classically the red button scenario, so that someone pushed the red button and then system is locked. No one can access it anymore. We have the topic in with workflow, so that not one single person can do changes to keys, or let's say change the encryption keys or disable encryption keys, or also, for example, delete encryption keys, which could have serious impact. So we have we call let's say the 4 eyes principle, as you would say. Of course, the central user interface, which is then, let's say, a single management UI where you can assign the systems to your keys. So you can have one key to multiple systems and vice versa. We have, let's say, multiple layers for security. For example, we have a keychain in place so that not the customer-owned keys are used for the encrypt or for the as key encryption keys for the single SAP solutions, but a keychain behind. We have, of course, a topic for the audit logs, to have an end-to-end audit log trail, so to have later access to see what key was used for which solution, when was it activated, when was it disabled, was there events maybe coming back from the application, so that we have everything stored in audit logs to for later usage. For the authentication and authorization topic, we use, let's say, standard SAP Cloud Identity solution, which manages that. So we do not have that additionally in the solution as we have a service for that. So if you want to manage your access authorization, you can do that via the Cloud Identity. Of course, the FIPS compliant key store, I think I already managed that in the area of the SAP-managed keys and bring your own key. So if you use these two scenarios, keys are stored in a FIPS compliant key store on the SAP side. And of course, let's say that's also a big topic that you can assign and or change also the assignment of a solution to a key. So if I, let's say, assign the key 1, I also able to unassign it. It does not mean that this system is then automatically completely open and not encrypted anymore, as we always have the default fallback to the customer-specific encryption key. But for example, I want to change. And I want to, for example, I have 3 solutions assigned, or SAP BTP service assigned to one key, and after some time I want to decide that I want to change, for example, this assignment. So I want to take one solution out, for example, give them an own key because I have internal changes, reorganizations, whatever. I would be able to do that. Yeah, so that's the most features. Let's say not everything will be fully in from the start. There will be some restrictions. So for example, the SAP-managed key scenario will come in 2026 as well as the bring your own key. So bring your own key will be released in the next month, SAP-managed a little bit later, but everything planned in 2026. And for the start, we will start with hold your own key scenarios because these are the most requested ones. So that's what we had to deliver first.
Okay, yeah, thanks for this, for outlining this. I think you mentioned something like FIPS compliant, and maybe not all of our listeners know what that means because not all of us are dealing with the topic of encryption day by day. So maybe can you give a couple of words to that?
Oh, difficult question. I would have to look up what FIPS exactly stands for, to be honest.
Okay, no problem.
But it's the, let's say it describes or it is a kind of certification which describes how secure the solution is, and it's something which is used for key store. So, for example, if you look also for, or if you're having running solutions on hyperscalers and so on, so if you look, for example, on their key stores or also for third-party applications who use key stores, they always have a FIPS certification, and there are different levels, and there is then, you can see how the certification is.
Okay, it's a bit like a standardization then.
Yeah, it's just a standardization that you can compare things, and let's say it's like our lovely ISO and what else or what's out there. So we have FIPS for this topic.
Okay, and you also talked about the 4 eyes principle. Can we maybe have some comments on that even more? So how is that done in the software?
So the 4 eyes principle means that, for example, if I have the role as key administrator in the solution, and I want to, for example, enable a key for a cloud solution I newly bought, and I get a tenant set up, and I set everything up that I can see the solution inside my KMS, and I want to enable a key, which will automatically, or you can set it up before, of course, from a setup perspective, but you can define how much, for example, other people have to confirm an action. So that, for example, if I enable a key, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on your setup, key administrator gets an information, they have a task, and they can approve it, and after the approval of the task, the action is performed inside the system, which makes a additional security layer that you do not have unwanted changes, especially not in that high risk area, let's say that way. And just to be sure that nothing happens which can have any serious impact on your SAP systems.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. So 10 years back when I started in my free time with encryption, the first time I encrypted a hard drive of me and then somehow misconfigured and lost the key, and then my data was still encrypted. Yeah.
That's one of the things which should not happen, let's say it that way.
Yes.
And that's always a topic with key deletion. So if there's a deletion task, the others should always be sure that they know what they're doing, because it's not normally it's not happening, but we already had a customer deleting let's say a key, and it was very hard. They were lucky that let's say I think it was the key store in the backup we used. They had a kind of delayed time for the real final deletion of the keys. They had a kind of, let's say, security backup that you had to have a certain time, few hours, whatever, to restore it back from the hardware. And luckily enough, I think it was before my time, but they opened the ticket fast enough so that could be, the rollback could be performed. But it's very, very difficult. So you can, let's say, shut down your whole SAP solution forever by the data stays encrypted and you will not be able to open it again.
Yeah. So be aware of this. Have a good multi-eyes principle and just delete when you're 100%, maybe even 1000% sure. Yeah. Okay. So our main audience of the podcast is obviously BTP customers using BTP for side-by-side extensions, using BTP for whatever they identified in their company to make with BTP. And when now thinking about the new key management service, so how can customers from a commercial point of view, can customers use it through their existing contracts or what is the approach here?
So it's not a subscription service of the BTP. So you have to buy a license for the solution. So you have to buy the KMS solutions. And with this solution, you buy also a number of connections. So with the connections, then you can decide what you want to add. And you also can add, for example, BTP sub-accounts. And then everything which is, let's say, set up for customer keys will then use the key assigned to this BTP sub-account. We have some specific, let's say, services, like, for example, if you use a HANA Cloud on the BTP, for example, for a custom application or extension you build on the BTP. For example, for this HANA Cloud, you can also, it's kind of flag you have in the setup of the HANA that you want to have customer keys enabled. And then you can also select that, for example, in your KMS as a single application and can be used for the key encryption with customer-owned keys. But you have to buy the license. It's not working via subscriptions. But if you have the license, you have the connections, you can seamlessly use it. Also for your SAP cloud solutions, there's no need then for additional topics on our side. Of course, could be, I always tell that our customers, depending on the solution itself. So for the BTP, it's seamless. For other cloud solutions, could be that there are some steps to be done from the cloud LOB because, for example, they have to change something on the database that it's enabled or not.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe we also have some listeners in our audience today which already took care of key management in the past. So they maybe have the SAP Data Custodian Key Management service in their landscape already. So what is the difference to this maybe first and why you decided to create something new?
Different topics. So first one, let's say the need for a new solution was that the Data Custodian KMS was, let's say, or it's still there. You can still buy it if you want to, but it does covers very specific solutions on our portfolio. So of course the major solutions are in, like you could also today use it with a BTP sub account, but it's not often done because it comes with some technical issues. So you have to be careful using it with the BTP, and also we had only very specific solutions. And from a technical perspective, it's not very scalable. So you cannot scale it unlimited. And with the new solution, of course, the idea is that we have one central approach for all cloud solutions at SAP, also all the SAP services, to cover most of the applications, and also that we get a large customer base who uses it. And the other topic is the new KMS can be used also from our cloud solutions or BTP services without customers buying it, so that the cryptographic layer, which provides, for example, also customer-specific encryption keys, can also be used from SAP internal services. And then, of course, if a customer decides on a later point in time that he wants to have customer-owned encryption keys, it's a seamless change. So you can just assign a key, everything in the background gets done. No one has to touch it anymore. So there are big benefits which came up. And on the other hand side, if you look for customers, we had also a topic with tenants, so there were restrictions that you cannot have tenants everywhere. There were tenant restrictions with regions. So a lot of technical stuff, it makes it very difficult. If we have customers listening, maybe they know it, so there were only combinations possible and so on, and we want to get rid of all that restriction, so they have a single solution, able to manage everything, without, let's say, a lot of manual effort that someone has to do something. That's the basic idea.
Okay. And for the case we have someone listening which is using the SAP Data Custodian Key Management service, can they migrate to the new key management service?
Yeah, I always like the word migration in that topic. So migration means, in fact, that you take over data from the old to your new solution. So what's the data inside the KMS? So if you, for example, use SAP-managed or bring your own key, it's the keys. And of course, no, we cannot migrate keys, because if we could migrate keys, that would be something which a KMS should not be designed for. So of course, you'll not be able to take out the keys. Now, the steps to move are in fact quite easily. So from a KMS perspective, if you want to change, we would set up a tenant for the new solution. You would set up your keys in the new solution, and then at one point in time, and that's also something which can happen at once, one after another, and that's also something where we have included in the BTP services or the SAP cloud solutions. They have to change in the background the connection from the old or the existing connection to the old solution. Then back that we have the connection to the new services, so that we have a seamless that it's working seamlessly. What I cannot tell you, in fact, or for all solutions, is maybe there is a downtime needed for the change. For example, if you make this database change in a cloud solution, could be that there is a small downtime when we make that change. But that would be, in fact, the high-level process. But yes, you are able to change. You do not have to stick for the old solution forever if you already have it. We will also offer, of course, the existing customers to move to the new solution at latest when we have the same feature status as the current solution, especially looking at the key store topic.
Okay, yeah. So I think we already touched on a lot on ground. So how can our listeners or customers can get started with a new key management service now?
So the first topic would be talk to your account team or sales responsible. They should be able to give you all the information or also the latest roadmaps for the new solution, especially which key stores are available in the next weeks and months, which solutions are supported. So I think this year will be a very interesting year, because we will get a lot of new stuff in, also from an SAP solution perspective. So we have the let's say major cloud solutions. They will join shortly in the next months. So for example, if you have talking about private cloud, so RISE, ECS, if you're talking about success factors, if you talk about BDC, so that are the major ones. From a BTP perspective, we have already a lot of service in. So for example, document management is in, SAP Mobile, SAP Build is in, the AI Core service is in. So if you use AI Core in the BTP, you can use it with the KMS, which means then all the data at rest which is there, and for example the training data and so on, can be secured with your customer-owned key, so you do not have to store it unencrypted or with a default key. So that's already possible, but of course there's much more coming in the next months.
All right, yeah, thanks for answering all these questions for me. We always ask our guests at the end for some recommendations, like a book, a movie, series, can be work related, can be your most liked movie, whatever.
The most liked movie, okay. What I'm currently reading, I really like to read is I like the books of Tom Clancy. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know that, but you know maybe the one or other movie, for example, The Hunt for Red October is one of them, with the submarine. Oh, really?
Maybe I saw some scenes.
Maybe okay.
Doesn't ring a bell for me.
Big black hole in the movie history on your side. No, or Das Kartell and so on. So it's quite I'll say so, agency thriller. Books, and there are quite a lot of them already from the author. So yeah, that's what I really like at the moment, which I really can recommend. It's interesting to read and does not get boring. And what I also recommend, especially if I'm talking to students, if you want to do something for your, for example, programming language or for IT overall, I always can recommend to look at the Harvard University page. They offer from time to time, it depends the offers what they have on, but they have a great selection of online courses. You can do training for programming languages, so basic training, advanced. Also, I think some AI topics, so large language models topics, machine learning, so big data, and so a lot of stuff, which is so it's not specific online courses created for, let's say, freeze, but it's the real, it's captured from the Harvard University session. So it's nice to watch and very, very informative.
Yeah, I also watched some in the past, so I also like that. Offerings from them. Yeah. All right. Then thank you, Sascha, for joining me today in our podcast episode. It was really a pleasure. I learned a lot about encryption. I hope you felt a bit of comfortable in our studio here. And with that, we are already at the end of the episode of our Unlocking SAP BTP podcast. Make sure to check out the new key management service. And of course, make sure to check out Sascha on his LinkedIn to don't miss some stuff. And with that, my name is Niklas Siemer. I'm product manager for SAP BTP, recording here from the headquarters in Waldorf. And then see you in one of the next episodes. Bye-bye.
Bye.